There's a kind of discipline most people never experience, the kind that doesn't break when you're tired, discouraged, or standing face to face with failure. A discipline that doesn't depend on motivation, mood, or inspiration. A discipline that feels unshakable, automatic, almost frightening in its power. And today, we're stepping into the life of Cairo Ren, a young man who began his journey as one of the weakest people in his village. Someone known for giving up on everything he started, but through an ancient warrior system, he transformed into someone unrecognizably strong, not because he became faster, or bigger, or smarter, but because he rebuilt the structure of his mind. This video will show you how warriors once trained to survive in mountains, endure impossible missions, and push beyond human limits, without willpower, without apps, and without motivation. Their secret was the Ninpo discipline system, a path built on identity, structure, and absolute consistency. If you've ever struggled to stay disciplined, if you've ever made promises to yourself and broken them, if you've ever felt tired of starting over, then stay with this story. It might change the way you see your mind and your life. And before we begin, if you find strength in videos like this, stories that sharpen discipline, build inner power, and show you who you can become, consider subscribing to the channel. It supports the work, and it keeps you connected to content that strengthens the warrior inside you. Take a breath. Prepare your mind. Let's begin. Eren Takeda was known for one thing: quitting. Not because he wanted to, but because no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't stay consistent. Every goal he set felt sharp and exciting in the beginning, then dull and heavy by the end of the week. He promised himself he would wake up early, but he slept in. He promised he would train daily, but he skipped whenever he felt tired. He promised he would change, but every promise collapsed the moment life became uncomfortable. Eren wasn't weak physically. His weakness lived deeper, in his identity. He carried a silent shame, the feeling that he could never rely on himself. And the world noticed. Those around him assumed he was lazy, unreliable, and uncommitted. Eren learned to laugh it off, pretend he didn't care, and hide behind excuses. I'll try again next week. Tomorrow will be different. I just need more motivation. But every time he spoke those words, he felt a little smaller on the inside. One night, everything changed. Eren overheard a conversation in the village, stories of a remote mountain school where warriors trained without compromise. Guided by a system older than memory. They called it Ninpo, the invisible path, the warrior discipline. It was said that those who completed the 100-day training ritual never returned the same. For Eren, something stirred, not confidence, not courage, but hunger. A quiet voice whispered, "What if discipline isn't something you're born with? What if it's something you build?" And with nothing left to lose, Eren did something he had never done before. He stopped talking about changing, and took the first step toward change. Eren left his village before sunrise, carrying nothing but a small bag and the silent fear that he might fail again. The path to the mountain was steep, scattered with rocks and mist, and every step felt heavier than the last. But this time, something was different. He wasn't chasing motivation. He was chasing a chance to rewrite who he was. Hours later, exhausted and trembling, he reached the entrance of the training grounds. Before him stood an old wooden gate, weathered by time and carved with a single word: Ninpo. Past the gate was a quiet courtyard and a small hall where an elderly man sat alone. Straight-backed, eyes sharp, posture still, his presence felt deeper than silence, more solid than stone. This was Master Renshin, the guardian of the Ninpo system. Eren bowed awkwardly, unsure of what to say, but the master spoke first. "You came here because you want change," he said, "but wanting is useless. We work with doing." Eren tried to explain his failures, how he quit everything he started, how discipline escaped him, how he wanted to be stronger. But the master shook his head. No one wants to be weak. Everybody wants strength. The difference is that most people think wanting is enough. He stood and handed Eren a thin wooden tablet. On it was written a single sentence: "You will follow the same training every day for 100 days. No changes, no excuses." Eren stared at the rule, startled by its simplicity. "That's it?" he asked. Master Renshin smiled, the kind of smile that held truth rather than comfort. "That is everything." Eren did not yet understand, but he felt the weight of the words settle in his chest. Ninpo was not about motivation or inspiration. It was about structure, one system, repeated without failure, until discipline replaced emotion and action replaced thought. As the sun dropped behind the mountains, Aaron realized his journey had truly begun. Not toward strength right away, but toward the destruction of the version of himself that always quit. The next morning, Aaron learned what Ninpo truly meant. There were no motivational speeches, no ceremonies, no dramatic challenges, only structure. Master Renshin handed him a scroll containing the training ritual, and the instructions were startlingly clear. Do the same sequence, at the same time, in the same order, every single day, for 100 days. There would be no variation, no adjustment, and no negotiation. If Aaron was tired, he would still train. If he was frustrated, he would still train. If he was sick, he would train at half power, but he would not stop. At first, Aaron didn't understand. He thought progress required constant challenge and change. Why repeat the same movements, the same breathing patterns, the same stances day after day? Master Renshin explained. Discipline is not built by doing what is exciting. It is built by doing what is required. Ordinary people train when they feel like it. Warriors train no matter how they feel. Aaron began the routine, simple stretches, breathing drills, low stances, controlled strikes. The first hour felt invigorating, the second tiring, and by the third he was drenched in sweat, legs shaking, lungs burning. The next day, he repeated it, and the next, and the next. 7 days in, the excitement faded, the work felt dull, his body ached, his mind begged for something different, anything different. But Master Renshin reminded him, change does not begin when you enjoy the work. Change begins when you continue despite no enjoyment. Aaron looked around and saw every student performing the same movements with silent focus. Not one complained, not one negotiated, not one stopped. Their bodies moved like rivers, fluid, repetitive, unstoppable. And slowly, Aaron began to feel something shift. Each repetition felt less like effort, and more like identity. Each day built momentum instead of exhaustion. Each hour felt like a brick in the foundation of a new self. He began to understand the purpose. The Ninpo ritual wasn't training the muscles. It was training the mind to act without hesitation. 93 days still remained. But for the first time in his life, Aaron wasn't thinking about the finish line. He was thinking about the next repetition. By day 20, Aaron felt a strange shift he couldn't fully explain. The training still hurt, his muscles still trembled, his mind still protested at dawn when the bell rang. But despite all of that, something remarkable was happening. He was no longer negotiating with himself. The arguments, the excuses, the bargaining that once ruled his decisions had started to vanish. The routine had taken their place. Before Ninpo, Aaron woke up every day deciding whether he would train. Now, he didn't decide, he moved. Wake up. Stand. Train. No thinking. No drama. No hesitation. Master Renshin called this the power of momentum. When movement becomes automatic, discipline becomes identity. On the hardest mornings, when rain hammered the rooftops and the mountain wind cut through his clothes, Aaron would stare at the training ground and feel resistance rising. But resistance no longer stopped him. It only slowed him, and only for a moment. He had made a promise, not to be perfect, but to never break the chain. One night, a fever came, his body shook, skin burning, vision blurred. The old version of Aaron would have surrendered without a thought, but Ninpo allowed no surrender. He staggered into the courtyard, movements weak and clumsy, and performed the drills, not well, not cleanly, but fully. Sweat and rain mixed on his skin. His breath came in short bursts. But he finished. Master Renshin simply nodded. You did not train the body tonight, he said, you trained the truth. Aaron finally understood what Ninpo demanded. Progress didn't matter. Performance didn't matter. Perfection didn't matter. Continuation mattered. As the days passed, the momentum grew stronger than fatigue, stronger than doubt, stronger than the voice that once convinced him he was incapable. Aaron wasn't only building habits, he was dismantling the version of himself who needed motivation to move. And by day 30, he realized something he had never believed before. He didn't have to fight for discipline anymore. He was becoming discipline itself. As the days passed, Aaron began to notice another layer within the Ninpo system, a principle that separated those who merely tried from those who finished. It wasn't just about showing up every day. It was about removing the possibility of being stopped. Master Renshin called it the discipline of preparation, anticipating every obstacle before it arrived and training the response in advance. Life will test you, the master said, not once, but repeatedly. The reason most people fail is not because they are weak, it is because they are surprised. Aaron was given a new assignment. Write down every challenge he might face in the next 70 days and decide ahead of time how he would respond. He sat beneath a lantern that night, ink brush trembling slightly in his hand, and wrote, "If I get sick, train at 50%. If it rains, train under shelter. If I leave the mountain, train before sunrise. If I am exhausted, shorten the routine. Never skip it." With each solution he wrote, Aaron felt fear loosening its grip. He realized most failures in his past weren't caused by difficulty. They were caused by hesitation. Without a plan, every problem felt like a crisis. With a plan, every problem became another version of the same training. And the Ninpo ritual grew stronger. There were no more pauses. No more decisions. No more negotiations. When obstacles appeared, Aaron did not stop to think. He executed the response already written. Even when thunder rolled across the valley, and night hid the courtyard in darkness, he trained. Even when fatigue pressed heavy against his bones, he trained. The details change, the standard did not. Master Renshin watched from a distance, eyes narrowing with quiet approval. "You are no longer protecting results," he said, "you are protecting identity." Aaron felt the truth of those words settle inside him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't wondering whether he could succeed. He was wondering who he would become if he didn't stop. Obstacles no longer frightened him. He had turned them into instructions. By the time Aaron reached the final days of the Ninpo ritual, something extraordinary had unfolded, not in his muscles, not in his skills, but in his identity. The boy who once struggled to stay consistent had vanished. In his place stood someone calm, steady, and unwavering. The routine that once felt like a burden now felt like breathing. The training was no longer something he did, it was something he was. On day 99, Master Renshin watched Aaron complete the kata sequence with movements that were fluid, precise, and effortless. The master saw what Aaron could not yet see. His mind had crossed into a new state, a state the shinobi called mushin. The mind without hesitation. There was no internal argument, no inner resistance, no questioning whether he should continue. Action flowed from intention the way water flows downhill, naturally and without force. Aaron no longer feared failure. He no longer feared discomfort. He no longer feared the version of himself who once broke promises and abandoned goals. That identity had dissolved somewhere along the path, buried beneath repetition, structure, and momentum. More surprising than strength or skill was the silence in his mind. The noise of doubt had faded. The distractions that once pulled him away felt distant and powerless. He could focus not because he forced himself to, but because his mind had learned stillness. That evening, Master Renshin approached him. "You came here searching for discipline," he said, but discipline was never the goal. The goal was transformation. Aaron bowed deeply, realizing what the 100 days had taught him. True discipline isn't something you fight for. It's what remains when the fight inside you is gone. He didn't feel like someone who had completed a challenge. He felt like someone who had become whole. And as the sun dipped behind the mountain, Aaron understood that Ninpo was never about perfection, it was about becoming the warrior he was always meant to be. On the morning of the 100th day, Aaron stood alone in the courtyard, the cold mountain air wrapping around him like a quiet reminder. He completed the final kata, breath steady, movements smooth, mind silent. There was no applause, no celebration, no dramatic ending, just completion, clean, honest, and real. The ritual had ended, but something deeper had begun. Master Renshin joined him at the gate. For a moment, neither spoke. Then the master rested a hand on Aaron's shoulder and said, "You have finished the practice. But the practice is not finished." Aaron understood. Ninpo wasn't a challenge to conquer, it was a way to live. True warriors weren't shaped by achieving a goal, but by continuing after the goal was reached. The strength he gained didn't come from extraordinary talent or rare ability. It came from doing the ordinary without interruption, from training on the days he was weak, from refusing to negotiate with difficulty, from preparing for every obstacle instead of fearing them. As Aaron walked down the mountain path back toward the world he left behind, He felt no anxiety about returning to his old life. There was no chance of becoming the person he once was, because that version had been replaced. Day by day, movement by movement, commitment by commitment, he now carried a discipline that didn't crack under pressure, didn't collapse under doubt, and didn't vanish when motivation disappeared. He realized that the true journey was not the 100 days behind him, but the years ahead, years in which he would build, repeat, refine, and grow. Whether life became chaotic or calm, painful or peaceful, Ninpo had prepared him for every moment. Whatever came next, Aaron would not break. He had become unbreakable. And as he stepped into a new future, he whispered the words Master Renshin once wrote on his tablet. No excuses, no negotiation, no stopping. The mountain remained behind him, but the warrior walked with him forever. If Aaron's journey taught us anything, it's this. Discipline isn't built in perfect conditions, it's built in the moments when you refuse to stop. The Ninpo path isn't about talent or motivation, it's about creating structure so strong that even fear, doubt, and exhaustion can't break it. And the truth is, you don't need a mountain, a master, or a hidden school to begin. You only need to start with one routine, one promise, one day at a time. The version of you that struggles may still be here, but the version of you that endures is already waiting. And every choice you make is shaping who you become next. Momentum doesn't ask for perfection, only loyalty. If this story resonated with you, don't let it end when the video ends. Carry it with you, apply it, test it, build something unshakable inside your own life. And if you want more stories like this, stories about discipline, strength, resilience, and the warriors who shaped themselves from within, then stay connected. Subscribe to the channel to join a community built on growth and inner power. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next story. Share this video with someone who needs a spark to begin again. Thank you for watching, and remember, the world doesn't change when you want it to. It changes when you do.